So that just happened.
So this week started out pretty solid, really. I was installing this surround. In order to install the surround, I had to put the rough-in valve in, and that went pretty smooth. I made the assumption that this little plug right here was going to block off the water from being able to come out the shower head. Well, not so much. I charged the system, and sure enough, water came flying out of there, went into the tub, and went right into the basement. Because the tub is not connected to the wastewater system until after the wet stack test was performed. We'll get into that test here pretty soon. But as it goes, that's where the chasing water really began. And it just kept going from there. Now you see all these joints in here? Out of all of these joints, one of them leaked. And honestly, I pretty much predicted that it would. Not having the experience, wasn't 100% sure, but I sure did leak, which was right here. I guess I'll just describe to you why it failed, right? When we put this together, we did go ahead and put the glue on both the inside of the hub and on the outside of the fitting, so that when it all melded together, it was fine. But the last piece of the puzzle that went together that first go around was the pipe that was right over here. And when I went to go put that in, I pushed apart this fitting, and this had enough time to almost fully dry, but not quite. I allotted for the 2 hours that the glue recommends, but it still wasn't long enough. And when I pulled those apart, I felt it pop a little bit. And from that, just feeling it pop, I thought, man, it's gonna leak. And sure enough, it did. So, to learn from that, from my mistake, what you wanna do is before, I guess, let's say, if you have that sort of scenario where you've worked on a joint recently and you're gonna be working farther down the line and you need to pull those two apart in order to shove your pipe in there, wait till the next day. Just wait till the next day. And because of learning this, it did help me assemble another leak in the next room over. So this T leaked, so I had to cut the pipe back here and over there in order to pull this all apart and fix the leak that was here. Now, when I had to do that, I was able to glue up from that section over to here, but I couldn't get this piece in until I knew that all of this was fully dry. So I did the glue up, I let it sit overnight, and then I came in and forced this piece in, and I was able to get enough wiggle out of this and out of this, and it was worth having the patience to do it that way. Otherwise, I would have ended up with the same problem that we had in the other room. Now, I'm not going to go into great detail on every single leak, but actually, I want you to throw a comment down below and guess how many leaks I had this project. It might surprise you. But what I want to do is tell you about why my technique that I used failed and what I did to correct what I was doing wrong. And there's a little bit of a history lesson here, so bear with me for just a moment. A while back, I worked with a plumber that always made his joints look like this, where they were no primer, no glue, squeeze out, and he was fast at it, and he got through the jobs, and he never even stuck around for the wet test because, well, he told me his systems never leak, and I never saw one leak. And so I decided to, spend time with this guy because he's clearly a craftsman at what he does, and he loves what he does, and he's good at it. So I watched him a few times. He wasn't the type that was really sharing or a teaching type, so you had to do it kind of visually, right? Just watch him, see how he did it. Whatever he was doing to make his joints always look like this, I never figured out. I got lucky a few times, clearly. I've got a bunch of joints that look like this. And they don't leak. They work perfectly. And then I had a slew of joints that leaked a lot. Clearly I got lucky here and I didn't know what I was really doing. So on one of my shorts, I showed how to bevel the pipe, right? I figured that out about halfway through this job, which honestly contributed to a bunch of the leaks. Because when you don't have this beveled and you put it into the hub, it'll scrape all the glue and primer right off the surface and leave a bald spot on the hub. And that's where it ended up leaking on me a couple of times. So, but on that short, someone called me out on not putting glue on the pipe, because that's the way that fella did it, and I didn't know that I should. So once I started pulling these apart and started noticing, that issue there, and some of the pipes I did bevel and they still leaked, like, all right, clearly there's something I'm doing that's not as good as that guy did it. What I did when I made all of the repairs is I primed with the bevel, and I glued the hub and the pipe, putting it together with the quarter turn, and I didn't have any leaks moving forward. Every single joint that I repaired stayed, no problems, except for that one little issue up in the primary suite, which I also put a short out about. So you can check that out if you're interested. So basically, I have to swallow my pride, realize that just because I watch someone do something does not make me as good as it, which is, pretty common sense, really, and that I can strive to be this good all the time instead of like this. Yep, that's the goal. I'm ready to start testing the wastewater system again, and it all starts here. You can see I have a rag sitting here because, well, we have a pretty significant leak right in this union right here. But we'll get into that a little bit later. Right now, we're still testing the wastewater. I have everything fixed as far as I know, and now we're ready to go for round 2. So you can hear that water running through the pipe. And what I'm doing is I'm just waiting until I hear that noise sort of elevate its way through this pipe. And once it gets to where it's kind of splashing around in here, then I know I'm getting really close. And you want to stop every now and again and kind of let the system equalize out and burp out and all that sort of thing. Because you really don't want water or air trapped anywhere, because we want water to go there. So we can see if it has a leak. Well, that was exciting. Yeah, so I heard a little hiss. So I knew air was escaping somewhere. And as soon as I heard it, I came running down here and I heard the geyser. And then set the camera here as fast as I could. I don't know what the quality of footage is going to be, but I guess I'll have a look at it when I'm editing. But would you like to see what happened? It's not as bad as it looks. This looks pretty bad. So there's the flange for the toilet, for the Jack and Jill. Here's the plug that I had in there, keeping the water in. And you can see that it just ejected itself right up out of there and landed next to the flange. Yep, so I guess lesson to be learned here is crank the living daylights out of these things. Oh man, what a bummer. Now I gotta clean up this mess. I don't have a mop on the site. Oh, this ought to be interesting. Good morning. It's Thursday, and last night I was able to fix the last of the leaks. Fingers crossed. Thanks to Hulberts. They were great. I called them up 5 minutes before they closed. Say, hey, listen, I know you're closing in 5 minutes because you set these fittings out for me. They did. It was awesome. I ran there, got the fittings, came back here, fixed the leak. And obviously the glue had plenty of time to dry, so here I am, first thing in the morning, gonna turn the water on. Wish me luck. Wah, wah, wah. So this leak is coming from above this fitting here. What happened is that same location was leaking yesterday. And so I went ahead, I cut the pipe, and then replaced the pipe, put a coupling in. The problem is you have this fitting here, you have the fittings down below, and there's not enough wiggle room to get this pipe high enough to get this pipe in and put the coupling in. So what I tried to do was cut this pipe slightly longer than the exact fit from inside the fitting below to up here and try to get it in. Well, it wasn't enough. So that fitting's leaking. So what I'm gonna do is take it all apart. I'm gonna put a Fernco in, and that will solve this. Bah, what a bummer. Oh well. Live and learn. Live and learn. Valve on. Floor's getting dry. Water flowing. We're off the edge of that roof. We'll see a whole bunch of water flowing as soon as the exhaust stack is completely full. And so far I've run around the house, I don't know, half a dozen times. No leaks so far. I can definitely hear the water running in the venting piping in the attic. So it's gotta be getting pretty close. There you have it. She's full of water, but she's not leaking. Everything's nice and dry. This shiny bit is old glue that's stuck to my hand. Wet stack test starts now. So we have to let this go for 20 minutes and maintain this water level. Is how this works. So I'll just sit up here for 20 minutes, see how it does, and then give code enforcement a call. I'm pretty confident it's gonna do its job, so I might just call them now. But if I do that, you know it'll start leaking, right? So maybe I'll just wait 20 minutes. That's fine. So I'm home editing the video and thought I'd take a moment to go through a complete breakdown of what this project cost. The initial price for all the materials was $5,739.76. I spent 110 hours on the initial install. The repair cost afterwards to fix up all my mistakes, $255.41 in material and 30 hours in labor to complete the repairs. So you're looking at roughly $6,000 in material, 140 hours of labor. The two quotes that I received, one was $45,000 for total project, and one was $24,000 for a total project. The $24,000 also came in as a T&M bid, meaning he would have done it for time and material. So he's a professional plumber. His initial install wouldn't have taken 110 hours, and he certainly wouldn't have had the 30 hours of repairs to incur. And if you did, I wouldn't be paying for that. So when you're judging on how you're going to manage a plumbing install, keep all these factors in line and try to figure out what your labor is worth. The other thing that I'm concerned about, seeing how I'm trying to sell this property when I'm finished, is I spent 140 hours doing this plumbing. I could have spent 140 hours performing carpentry tasks. So I could be that much further ahead on this project had I had these extra hours. Was it worth it? Well, I had no option, really. I had to do it this way. So when you're doing your project, really think this through. Ah! The plumbing, it's finished. Done and dusted. Whew! Passed the wet stack test. Thrilled. So happy that the weight of the plumbing is off my shoulders and I can get back to being a carpenter. And I am excited because I have a project that's geared up for next week that is just gonna scratch all my carpentry itches. So, Nick Kobe in the comments last week asked about the electrical inspection that was done a few weeks ago. And yes, it passed. It was fine. The only thing I need to do is add a bunch of staples near any sort of location of boxes. So within 6 inches of any box, every wire has to be stapled off. So no big deal. I'll run around and do that before sheetrock and put up the nail protector plates. I have half the house done. He said just continue with what I was doing. So that's fine. And yeah, so that's it. Plumbing's over with. I'm back to being a carpenter. I'm so happy. Okay, enough of that. Thank you for stopping by High Peaks Home and enjoying the journey of the abandoned house, episode 38, I hope.